Hello, happy Monday! I hope you're getting on okay. Time for the next chapter of our story, the Ickabog. We're on the iPad's a bit weird today, but anyway, hopefully you can see it. Chapter 6 today of the Ickabog. So we'll quickly recap what happened last week. Can you remember anything that happened last week? So we learnt that King Fred is the king of Cornucopia, and there's a myth in the marshlands. There lives an Ickabog, and it's sort of like a story that parents tell their kids to make them go to bed and make them behave, that the Ickabog's out there. But I'm not convinced the Ickabog is a bad guy. I think the Ickabog is going to be a good guy, but that's just my prediction. You can maybe let me know what your predictions are. We met Bert and Daisy, who live in Cornucopia, and they are best friends, and sadly Daisy's mum died. She died while she was at work, and her job was to work for the king. In fact, Bert's mum and dad worked for the king, and Daisy's mum and dad worked for the king. And the king, some people think he was maybe to blame because he had made Daisy's mum work when she wasn't well, but he didn't know she wasn't well, and I think he maybe was feeling bad about it because then he didn't want to see that their house was full of black because it was, obviously they were sad. So he went and made them move house. He went and got them to swap houses, and now they live way out near the graveyard in a smaller house. But Bert and Daisy are still friends. So let's just find out what happens this week. It's all going on. So, chapter 6, the fight in the courtyard. There was a courtyard behind the palace where peacocks walked, fountains played, and statues of former kings and queens kept watch. As long as they didn't pull the peacocks' tails, jump in the fountains, or climb the statues, the children of the palace servants were allowed to play in the courtyard after school. Sometimes Lady Islanda, who liked children, would come and make daisy chains with them. But the most exciting thing of all was when King Fred came out onto the balcony and waved, which made all the children cheer, bow, and curtsy as their parents had taught them. The only time the children fell silent, stopped playing their games of hopscotch, and stopped pretending to fight Ickabog was when the lords Spittleworth and Flapoon passed through the courtyard. These two lords were not fond of children at all. They thought the little brats made far too much noise in the late afternoon, which was precisely the time when Spittleworth and Flapoon liked to take a nap between hunting and dinner. One day, shortly after Bert and Daisy's 7th birthdays, when everyone was playing as usual between the fountains and the peacocks, the daughter of the head seamstress, who was wearing a beautiful dress of rose pink brocade, said, "Oh, I do hope the king waves at us today." "Well, I don't," said Daisy, who couldn't help herself and didn't realise how loudly she'd spoken. The children all gasped and turned to look at her. Daisy felt hot and cold all at once, seeing them all glaring. "You shouldn't have said that," whispered Bert as he was standing right next to Daisy. The other children were staring at him too. "I don't care," said Daisy, colour rising to her face. "She started now, so she might as well finish. If he hadn't worked my mother so hard, she'd still be alive." Daisy felt as though she'd been wanting to say that out loud for a very long time. There was another gasp from all the surrounding children, and a maid's daughter actually squealed in terror. "He's the best king in Cornucopia we've ever had," said Bert, who'd heard his mother say this so many times. "No, he isn't," said Daisy loudly. "He's selfish, vain, and cruel." "Daisy," whispered Bert, horrified, Don't be silly." It was the word silly that did it. Silly? When the new head seamstress daughter smirked and whispered behind her hand to her friends while pointing at Daisy's overalls. Silly? When her father wiped away his tears in the evenings, thinking Daisy wasn't looking silly? When to talk to her mother she had to visit a cold white headstone? Silly? Daisy drew back her hand and smacked Bert right around the face. Then the oldest Roach brother, whose name was Roderick and who now lived in Daisy's old bedroom, shouted, "Don't let her get away with that, Butterball," and led all the boys in shouts of "Fight, fight, fight." Terrified, Bert gave Daisy's shoulder a half-hearted shove, and it seemed to Daisy that the only thing to do was to launch herself at Bert, and everything became dust and elbows until suddenly the two children were pulled apart by Bert's father. Major Beamish, who'd come running out of the palace on hearing the commotion to find out what was going on. Dreadful behaviour, muttered Lord Spittleworth, walking past the Major and the two crying, struggling children. But as he turned away, a broad smirk spread over Lord Spittleworth's face. He was a man who knew how to turn a situation to good use, and he thought he might have found a way to banish children, or some of them anyway, from the palace courtyard. Find out what happens in chapter 7 tomorrow. Poor Daisy.